Well, that's the thing that I truly believe is that God can do all things, and He can take a life that's kind of messed up and do some amazing stuff. Yeah. Greetings, Red Tie community. It's the bald guy in the red tie, John Butler, your favorite bald-headed red tie wearing realtor and Red Tie community show host. And Mark, I don't know if you knew this, but they actually did a poll recently, and I was voted 100% of being the best host of the Red Tie community show. Do you know why?
Because you're the only host.
That's right. Right, yeah. That's right. Yeah. He knows. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Mark Porter from Regeneration Church down in Ocean Beach. And if you're like, John, where's Ocean Beach? It's kind of by San Diego. It's a beautiful area. Yeah. Got the water, got the surfers.
The waves, yeah, everything.
And they got you as a pastor.
Amen.
Of Regeneration Church.
Yeah, crazy.
But you didn't necessarily just were born and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a pastor, right? And that's not how your story went?
No, I was going completely the opposite direction.
Yeah?
180 degree turn from from where I am today. Started off not going to church at all, no church background.
Yep.
I grew up in Dallas, Texas, so I should have gone to church. There's one in every corner.
You'd think
but
so.
I didn't grab hold of me somehow. Made it through, high school, junior high, fine enough, but started using drugs around 12, 13.
Oh, wow.
So early age, parents got divorced right at that time when I was 13. So kind of right from that, kind of started going pretty far left. Moved from Dallas, Texas to a small little community in Ohio, right on Lake Erie. And so that kind of rocked my world. Divorced, moved from a huge community of Dallas to a tiny little community in Ohio. Fell into a skater, punk rock little community of guys that I hung out with, drugs, alcohol, and just really grabbed hold of that. And it grabbed hold of me from an early age. So not the gospel upbringing that a lot of people have, not the typical pastor story, but that's my story nonetheless. So,
well, I think those are some of the best stories. We don't always start off as being the king of Israel. Sometimes you start off in the shepherd's fields, right?
Yeah, amen. Yeah,
So I find that interesting because you hear that story a lot of divorce situations, and we're kind of that generation where a lot of people experience that with the divorces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a very it's a path that a lot of people travel down, is the drugs and alcohol kind of thing.
Yeah. As a teenager, you're trying to cope with some feelings that you don't even know how to really cope with, and without the Lord there, you don't know there was no really outlet for me to go to. Yeah. So drugs and alcohol just kind of numbed that whole thing for me. And so I'd run to that. And I remember I was angry at my parents, of course, for being divorced. I was angry at them for moving me from Dallas and all my friends to Ohio. Angry. And then I was even angry at God, who I didn't believe in, but I was angry at this God that I kept saying, why would you do this to me? But I don't even believe in you. So I think even then, something was happening, that God was there. He was in the mix of it, but I was really, instead of running to him, I was running away from him. Trying to fix myself, trying to numb the pain that I was going through. And I remember being angry for the first time when my mom left. I was, a good kid, middle class. Me and my brother had basically everything we wanted. But I remember starting to get angry about that time. And I didn't know what to do with that. And so, again, kind of falling into this little community of skater punk rock kids.
Which is very anti-authoritarian and all those kind of things.
And it was okay to be angry. It was okay to have those feelings. I mean, we didn't know what to do with it, but it was okay. Everybody was angry. We didn't know what we were angry about, but let's just be angry together, angry. Right? Yeah. And so it kind of just snowballed, really.
Yeah.
And again, trying to chase this thing down, whatever it was, but really have no idea what I was even looking for. So I just kind of stumbled through high school, went to college, didn't really know what I wanted to do there. Did good. In fact, I got straight A's in high school, in college, but just didn't know.
Was college in Ohio, or?
Yeah, I went to Bowling Green State University.
Okay.
Political science, right in the center of Ohio, basically. But dropped out after 2.5 years, not knowing. I was political science, but I was like, what am I going to do with this? I had no aspirations to be a lawyer or a teacher. Started doing some art on the side, so I thought maybe that was the turn I would take, but I didn't want to waste any more money pursuing something that I wasn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
My dad got sick also right around that time, so I dropped out, went down to Atlanta, Georgia to take care of him. My dad was my hero growing up. Even though my parents got divorced, it was just, he was the guy I looked up to, hardworking guy, old school, kind of authoritarian. You do this, and his way was the right way. And I remember he called me on the phone. I was 20, just turned 21, And he said, I just turned 22, and he said, Mark, even Superman has his kryptonite. I'm like, what are you talking about? He had just moved to Atlanta, Georgia, got remarried. And he said, I got 3 months to live. I got lung cancer. The doctors gave me 3 months to live. And again, not having anywhere to take this, I just get angry. But I moved down to Atlanta, Georgia, spent the last 3 months of his life, almost 3 months to the day when the doctor said he was going to pass away. He passed away. And right after that, ran to San Diego, ran to Ocean Beach, with all this pain, all this guilt, now even the grief that I didn't know where to do, how to deal with it, and came to Ocean Beach and quickly got swallowed up into all sorts of drugs, all sorts of alcohol, just to numb the pain, the hurt and the pain. That was the grief that I didn't know how to deal with, so I just won't deal with it at all. I'll just stuff it back here, and that's what I just continue to do was with more and more drugs, more and more alcohol. But I was 23, I think, when we moved to OB, but I was still like a 13-year-old kid trying to, feel all this pain and hurt, but not knowing where to go with it or how to deal with it.
Man, and so you're on your own here in California.
Yeah.
And you're just a ball of emotional mess.
Yeah.
And then some people with some addictions are like, hey, come on over here. Let me show you how to take care of that.
Yeah. They and just hung out with that crowd, and it started to get worse and worse and worse. And a couple buddies that were close to me. This took a couple of years, as it got worse and worse and worse. But I remember one time I was around 30 at this time, drinking every day, drinking every morning, like a fifth of vodka to go. I was framing houses, but drinking like a fish. First thing I had to do in the morning was drink.
You had to do that just to maintain.
Just to be level. Yeah, exactly. And so he said, it was his birthday, and I said, Tony, what do you want for your birthday? And he was the first guy that ever called me out on it. He said, Mark, I want you to stop drinking for 3 days. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, that's what you want for your birthday? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, all right. I couldn't make it 3 hours, but it was the first time that somebody ever called me that there's something different going on here. Most of my friends like to party, but not the way I was. Mm-hmm. And then the drug addicts and alcoholics stop inviting you to parties because you're taking all their stuff, and they just don't even want you around. You got to be a mess when the alcoholics don't want you around, right? When the drug dealer says, bro, there's something wrong with you.
Dang.
And so it really started to make me start to think, okay, this isn't normal anymore. This isn't just, drinking and having fun. This is controlling my life.
And you're about 30 at this point?
I was right around 30. Yeah, I just turned 30 when he said that to me. But still, just didn't want to admit it. Didn't know where to go. Looked at a couple places, but nothing was really helping. And so I was just kind of lost, just kind of out there, just doing. I knew I needed to change, but I had no idea or no skill set to even begin to think about changing.
Yeah.
So it was rough.
And so were you did you have a place to live and stuff like that?
Thank goodness I always had a place to live. A couple times I was just couch surfing, but I was still working. I was able to maintain working just enough to pay my bills and to get drugs and alcohol. But I was just barely getting by. I came out to California to surf, but the last 2 years before I went back to prison, I didn't surf at all. Maybe a handful of times in 2 years. And that was the whole reason I came here. That whole culture, that whole vibe, but drugs and alcohol even ripped that from me. That was my passion, and I kind of just took that all the way to where I'd look at the ocean, but that was about as far as I'd get.
Kind of blurry-eyed.
Yeah.
You got to close one eye.
Yeah, someday I'll make it out there again. Yeah. But man, it had taken me. Drugs and alcohol had taken me so far from where I ever thought I would go, and put me in a spot to where I kept looking at myself, going, "This can't be my life. This can't be me." But yet here I was living it, every morning waking up to the same old thing.
Yeah. And then so you were in California.
I was in California.
Kind of wallowing around.
Yeah, and so my mom had moved back to Iowa. She grew up in Iowa. I'd never lived there before, but that's where she grew up, moved to Dallas, and then moved back to Iowa where her parents were. Her dad was getting older, so she went back to really take care of him. And she got saved at a church, starts praying for me, and she's telling me this, but I have no concept of what that means. Whatever, you're talking to this guy in the sky. That's great, Mom.
That's cute.
Yeah, right.
Was that really helping me?
What does that have to do with me? I don't even understand what you're saying, really. But she keeps saying this and telling me about her friends at church. And, it's great. I wasn't anti-religion or God even, but it just wasn't for me. That's good for you, Mom, and that's cool. But as I kept getting worse and worse and worse, I got my first DUI in California in 2003. And I was supposed to go with the girl I was living with at that time. I was supposed to go to Hawaii with her, and all of our friends were going down for her birthday. And it was 3 days before the trip to Hawaii. I got this DUI. They took my license. I couldn't get an ID, and so everybody left, and I stayed in San Diego in Ocean Beach alone, and just started drinking like crazy. I already drink crazy, but that just put me over the edge.
Right.
One of my other buddies came over that didn't go with him. He said, Porter, something's got to change. You're gonna. I've never seen anybody drink like this. You're gonna kill yourself just from drinking. You need to do something. And thank God he was there. The guy, which is crazy now, because I'm telling this guy the same thing now in his life, because it's
wow,
kind of
full
a
circle.
weird, it's kind of weird. But so I called my mom. I don't even really remember calling her, and I said, Mom, I got to get out of here. I can't do this anymore. And she had no idea how far I'd gone. She knew I drank, but she had no idea how far I'd gone. And she said, well, I'll get you on a plane. I said, Mom, I can't even get on a plane. It's not going to happen. So her and her sister flew to San Diego, took me to the hospital, and then they drove me back to Iowa to a rehab place, a 30-day, intensive on-site rehab. And that was the first time in probably 15 years where I didn't go, multiple days without drinking or smoking weed, at least for sure.
Right.
Probably even close to 20 years. And so I kind of start to see the light. Kind of my head starts to clear a little bit. I'm still thinking about drinking, still thinking I can handle this, still thinking these guys are just way further along than I am. But started going to church with my mom during that time, just on Sundays, just to be able to get out of the rehab. You could leave. That's about the only time you could leave. So Sunday morning I said, yeah, I'll go to church. But it just was so weird, and man, the people were way too happy for me, and I didn't understand what was going on. So it was, but I knew it was real, even though I couldn't put my finger on it. I knew that these people were real and they were sincere. Like people would come up and ask me how I'm doing, and they really meant, how are you doing? And I never felt that before in my life. The guys I hung around with, they could care less how you were doing. It's what do you have? What do you have to give me?
Right.
These people didn't. It wasn't about what I could give them. It was what they could offer me. They wanted to serve me. And so it was kind of, I think the Spirit of God really started to already move in my life then.
Start chipping away at that stone heart of yours.
Exactly. Yeah, the hardness of my heart, and just the self-reliance and the ego, which I was so egotistical, but I had nothing to be egotistical about. I mean, my life was falling apart. I was a train wreck, but I was still so prideful of who I was. But I look back and I was like, man, I was so lost.
Yeah.
Without the Lord, you are your own ruler. You are chasing your own will, even though it's running you down into a pit. You're still running that thing and think you got it under control.
Ego is a very interesting thing because we all have it, and it's one of our greatest enemies, right? And I heard someone say, was it edging God out? That's what ego stands for. And it's like, I am my own God. I can do my own things.
Right.
And it's like, as soon as you start taking control of your life, you often will end up in the ditch of life, kind of thing.
Yeah, and usually quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not pretty.
No, it isn't. No, not at all. That's why it's so important for us to die to ourselves, daily. It's not me. It's got to be the Lord. Which I was nowhere even about thinking about that. So I go through this rehab, come back to California. I think I got it all. I had 30 days sober. I got this fixed, man. I got this. And so I worked,
dialed in.
Yeah, I'm done. So I came back to the same thing, same friends, same hangouts, same job. 2 months later, I'm calling my mom again saying, I got to get out of here. I can't. I'm out. It's out of control. I couldn't handle it. So I go back to a different rehab, and now I start getting in trouble with the law in Iowa. Driving, couple fights, just a couple little things. So I keep going, and it's small town Iowa. So I keep going before the same judge, and now he starts to know my name. And then I start
not good.
Yeah, not good at all. And he was a hard-nosed judge. He didn't play around at all. Which is actually what I needed. So I'm in and out of jail now, in and out of treatment. I went to treatment 19 different times.
Wow.
I was in jail 21 different times. At this point, I've been to prison twice. Got arrested for breaking into my neighbor's house. Broke into a million other places, but that's what I got arrested for, to get alcohol. That's how bright of a guy I was.
You're trying to break into your neighbor's house?
I broke in to get alcohol instead of going to the store, and they were home. That's how smart of a convict I was, right? Yeah.
Sorry, I know it's no laughing matter, but
it is. It's ridiculous. But that's where my mind was. Wow. They're not home. I'll just break in the middle of the day. So my life was just getting worse and worse and worse. But again, I still think I got this. I got, even though my life was screaming, you do not have this. So in and out of jail, in and out of treatment, in and out of prison now. Had a 2-year-old son at this time, my oldest son Julian, and I get out of prison. Said, I'll never do that again. I'll never go back to that again. I'll never drink again. And 3 months later, I'm in the back of a cop car again for my 3rd DUI in Iowa, which is a felony. I'm on parole with a felony. and I'm going back to prison for the third time. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? So I go into the jail, I go back before the judge again. He says, Mr. Porter, something's got to change in your life. Why do I keep seeing you? And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I said, I know, Judge Mott, I know. I don't know. And I remember going back to the jail that night, orange suit on, and they put me in my own cell for some reason. Usually you're in with a bunch of other knuckleheads, but they put me in my own cell that night. It's like a 6x6 cell. Concrete floor, concrete walls, little sink and a toilet, and a bed with a mat like that thick on it. And I couldn't even get on the bed. I remember I just kind of crumpled down on the floor, and I remember thinking to myself, how did I get here? This cannot be my life. I said aspiration. My dad was a businessman. I'll be a businessman. I'll have white picket fence, kids, the wife, that whole deal. And my life was nowhere near that at all. I was a train wreck. And I don't know what happened or how it began. Well, I know the Spirit of God started moving at that moment hard. And I prayed. I got down on my knees and I prayed for the first real time. I made millions of little prayers, but they're just kind of like, if you can
God, get me out of this.
Yeah, please, if you help me now,
yeah.
I'll never do it again. And the next day I'm doing it again. But I said, Jesus, I don't know who you are and I don't know who I am right now. But if you will help me, I'll give everything I know of myself, which is very little, to everything I know of you, which is very little. If you'll just change me, if you'll just help me. And I went to sleep that night. I shouldn't have slept. I was so high and so wasted that night. I shouldn't have slept at all. I slept like a baby. Woke up in the morning, and my mom had dropped off a Bible. And you can get 3 things in jail. You can get a Bible, underwear, and socks. And she dropped those off. And I picked up that Bible, and I was like, all right, let's see what happens here. I don't even know what I'm reading. I think I read Hosea at first. I was like, this is a short enough chapter, right? I can handle this. But just started reading. I couldn't put the book down, and didn't really know.
You were drawn to it.
Yeah, I was compelled. Mm-hmm. And so I get to prison, and the second day I'm in prison, this older gentleman doing life, double life on a double murder, sees me reading the Bible in the day room, and he says, I never met this guy before, and he hadn't met me, and he sees my name tag. He's like, Porter, you know what you're reading? And I said, no, I have no idea. He's like, if you're serious, this is the only way you're going to stay out of here. And he's like, do you want to know more? And I said, yeah, please, I got to do something. And he said, I'll tell you what to read every morning. We get together every night, and we'll walk through this thing. We read 20 chapters a day. He's like, what else are you going to do?
Wow.
You're in prison. What else are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's do it. His name was Mr. Elam, greatest guy. And I said, okay, let's go. So every night, every morning, we read separately, and then we get together every night and just go over what we're reading. And man, just God started just moving. This guy was just pouring into me, discipling me. I didn't even know what he was doing, but full on discipling me. Said, Porter, you got a calling on your life to preach and teach. And I think you're going to start doing it in here. And I said, you're out of your mind, Mr. Elam. That's the last thing I ever wanted to do was public speaking or get in front of people and tell, do any. I didn't even know the Bible really. You know, but we're just reading and pouring, and God is just moving. And 2 weeks later, I'm preaching and teaching in the Bible. There's an inmate-led service, and the older gentleman that ran that, he said, Porter, I want you to preach. And I was like, all right, I don't know what that means, but I'll do it.
It's funny how God just throws you in there, huh?
Yeah, just jumps right in with the wolves.
Yep.
And so it started happening, and guys kept telling me, I think this is right. I think this is where you should be. This is the calling you have, and we're just reading and studying. And so we get through the Bible. Like every 3 months, we're reading through the Bible. And I'd be like, well, what are you gonna read next? And he's like, we're gonna read the Bible again. Like, all right, we read the Bible again. I'm like, what are we reading next? He's like, no, we're reading the Bible again. This is it. There's no other. You can read some other stuff if you want, but this is where you're gonna learn. This is where you're gonna grow. So just dissecting the Bible, God is just pouring into me. This guy is pouring into me, and just amazing things already in happening. And I was freer in prison than I'd ever been in my life, which sounds completely crazy. But I could see freedom. I had a lightness about me. Never had problems that time in prison. The 2 times before it was kind of dicey, but that time in prison there was no. I didn't have to look over my shoulder. I mean, I did every once in a while. You're in prison, but it was just a totally different feel of what was going on. There was a peace and a contentment that I'd never felt before in my life. It's because the Spirit of God was there with us, and it was beautiful. I mean, and this guy was doing and life in Iowa is life. He's not getting out. He's still there now. I still get to ride him. But this guy had a life and just an aura about him that he was like he's walking on the clouds. And his story was even crazier than mine. Grew up Muslim, was the imam for 27 years in the prison. God grabbed hold of him, pulled him out of Islam, and now he was teaching guys the Bible. Had never talked to white guys before, but sees me and starts talking with me, and so the whole prison's looking at us. I didn't know this at the time.
And the race and stuff
yeah,
like
they're
that.
like,
Yeah,
this shouldn't be happening, but here it is happening. The guards are looking at him, going, "Man, this is crazy." Seeing the life change in him and what's going on in his life. So it's that kind of that story spoke to the prison.
Had a ripple effect, huh?
Yeah, it was crazy. And like I said, I get to write this guy too, and he's doing well. There's a slim chance he might get out, but he's like, you know what? I'm here. I know what God's called me to do. God didn't put me here, but God's using me even in this situation. So to see how that guy can get through all that, I mean, I had 5 years. He's doing life.
Wow.
But could still have the joy and the peace and contentment, that God was with him and that this is where he's supposed to be.
And imagine the ripple effect that he's having. So,
it's huge.
That's what I love about the story of Paul in the Bible is that, the guy that mentored me, he said, sometimes God would have to get Paul in prison just so he could sit down and write because he was so busy doing other things,
Exactly right, yeah. Sometimes and to slow us down.
Because I've had friends of my own that have done the prison thing and jail, and I have one right now that's just floundering around and stuff like that. And I'm glad that you shared that story because, prison isn't necessarily the killer of all dreams, and sometimes that's the preparation stage for what's about to come.
Right,
kind of thing.
yeah, amen. Yeah, sometimes you leapfrog out of there. I mean, most guys I wouldn't say most, but a lot of the guys, they were like me. I was coming in, I was coming out. I was in and out 3 different times. But when the Lord grabbed hold of me, I saw a whole new way of life. I saw that life can be better. I saw that God can redeem even my story. My life, that day when I made that prayer, December 21st, 2007, was when I was going back to prison the 3rd time. I made that prayer to the Lord. I was a wreck. I thought life was over. I was like, there's no way anything good can come out of this. And the Lord, I think, was saying, just watch what I'll do. And he redeemed it and gave me a better life than I could ever dream or imagine. I started praying for a wife in prison even. I had a 2-year-old son at the time. When I got out, he was about to turn 6. And me and his mom, shaky relationship from the start. So I knew that wasn't going to be where I was going to be going. So I started praying to God. I said, Lord, give me a woman that fully your spirit, that loves you more than she would love me, that would accept Julian as her own son. And as a kind of at the end, I'd always put this tagline, like a woman that can sing. Because you're in prison with 1,000 dudes, it's cool, but all you hear is men singing for almost 3 years. I want to hear a woman sing. It's something that's beautiful.
Yeah,
and so I'd always be like, give me a woman that can sing. I get out of prison, go to this church that my mom was actually going to, a pastor I'd been writing, and meet my wife at Celebrate Recovery. Her brother's playing the worship for that. And she can sing. And so I'm like, not only God answered it all. She loved Julian. She's full of spirit, loved God more than she loved me, and she can sing. So I always tell people, don't be careful what you're praying for. God's listening, man, and he'll answer it,
Yeah.
I thought it was just a little joke at the end. He's like, no, I'm hearing you, Mark. I know what's going on for you.
God has the most amazing way of just tying in all the details and making things full circle and answering prayers. And he does it in such a way where you can't deny the fingerprints, his fingerprints on your life.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, people that are non-believers, they go, oh, well, that's just a coincidence, and it just happened that way, and your brain just made meaning of all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, when things happen like that over and over and over and over again, and it's so detailed, that's God saying, I'm here.
There's no way to deny it. Yeah. I can look back on my life now and see so many times where God had moved or done something or put somebody or someplace in things into place and can't deny it at all. In the middle of it, sometimes you can't see it, but looking back in hindsight, you can almost always see how God was weaving this thing out all along. It's beautiful to see, even how so I get out of prison, thinking there's no way I'm going back to California, go back to school, get my college degree to be a pastor, go through the ordination and everything to be in our denomination, and have this little church in Iowa, get hired. And the craziest thing was that they hired me in the first place. I mean, I'm a year and a half, prison. 2 years out of prison, no church background whatsoever except being the pastor in prison. Not even really a pastor, but just preaching and teaching there. That's my only church experience besides a little internship that I did at another church. And when I talked to the guy, actually a guy from prison got me the interview. He was going there, and he said, we're looking for a pastor, give it a shot. And I was like, well, it can't hurt. And so I went there, interviewed, and I find out later from the elders, the only reason they interviewed me is because nobody else was showing up. And so they were just they read my bio and everything, the resume, and they were like, well, we just gotta at least listen to him, but there's no way we're hiring this dude. There's no way. And because I put it all out there, look, I'm not gonna hide anything from you. I'm gonna be an open book.
Yeah.
And so, but they said that after the interview, it was a long interview, like 2.5 hours. They said after the interview, I left, and they sat together. Like, we think he's the guy. I mean, God's doing something, and it wasn't me. It was definitely the Lord that was doing it. And they said, we think this is it. And so they hired me, and I still look back at them going, man, I don't know who was crazier, them or me. Me trying to be a pastor with no experience whatsoever,
wow.
or them giving me a chance. But praise the Lord, they did. And so I kind of cut my teeth there. But all the while, the Lord is saying, go back to OB. Go back to, even really from the moment I was saved in prison, I knew, first thing I said to the Lord when I got saved, when I realized what had happened, I said, Lord, why didn't anybody tell me this before? I was 36 years old, I think, when I got saved. Why didn't anybody share me the gospel message with me? And I think they had, but I just couldn't hear it. Just my eyes weren't open, my ears weren't open. Definitely my heart wasn't open. The second thing I said is, Lord, who's going to go back and tell all these guys that I know in OB that are not hearing? Because I wasn't hearing it. I was hearing all these other ways to clean up myself and take care of myself and make myself better, which weren't working at all. But when somebody showed me Jesus, that's when the real transformation happened. And I said, man, who's going to go back and tell these guys, Lord? And he said, you are. And I said, you're crazy. There's no way. There's nothing for me in OB. What am I going to go back to OB for? But every step of my walk with the Lord just kept echoing that. Go back to OB. Go back to OB. Got this church in Iowa. Things are going well. We got a house, five-bedroom house, half-acre of land right next to the church. Happy, as good of a marriage as can be.
Living the best life, yeah.
I mean, then we thought we'd grow old there and retire. My wife, when I married her, I said, I think the Lord's calling me to California. You need to know this before we get married. And she said, Mark Porter, I'll never move to California. Right? Yeah, never. And I was like, all right, we'll see what happens here, right? Yeah.
All right, God, I need you to go get her and change her heart. Okay.
Yeah. God, I don't know if you heard that, but yeah. I don't know how this is gonna work. So again, I was just like, okay, this is how it's gonna work. This is just, we were content, good church, everything was going well. We had our second son together, so our third boy all together. She calls me during her this morning devotionals. I'm at the church. She calls me in tears. I'm like, is Hezekiah all right, our youngest son? And she's like, oh, he's fine. But I was praying and just doing devotionals, and the Lord started breaking my heart for the people of San Diego. And I hadn't brought this up in a while.
Wow, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I was like, all right. And some other things that started to happen right around that time. California kept popping up on the radar, but nothing serious. But then right after that, man, things just started snowballing. We weren't necessarily looking. I wasn't looking to plant a church. I was hoping to maybe come into a church and maybe come in that way.
No, that'd be too easy.
Oh, right, yeah. That was never the plan that God had. And so, man, things started to happen. We started talking to people, and really just very, very quickly, this all snowballed. We're going to California. We're starting this church. We with nobody behind us, a little chunk of money. Our family, and that's all really I knew of the Christians in OB, and God said, just go and do it. Everything the books told us not to do is what we did when we started this church. People were looking at us like, you guys are crazy, and we're like, well, a little bit, but God's saying do it. We got to do it. And so we left, came to OB, waited about a year, kind of just going out doing feedings, meeting people, talking with people. And then we started
some street ministry kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, just out, just talking with homeless people, feeding homeless people, talking to anybody that would really listen to us, which are usually the homeless people. They'll talk to anybody. I have a heart for them. Mm-hmm. People with drugs, alcohol. That the background that I had was really who the Lord kind of said reach those people. So our ministry looks dirty. It's rough. It's messy. But God's all over it. God's just doing some amazing, amazing things. We've seen, radical breakthroughs. We've seen radical transformations. We've seen guys come from being homeless, drunk, and addicted to meth, to getting cleaned up on the streets, to getting a van, to getting a hip replacement, to getting an apartment now, to just serving in the church, really doing anything we ask these guys to do. It's amazing what we've seen God do.
And there's something about the broken, and Pastor Brian said this so well. He said something about the people that are the most broken, God uses the most. Or I forgot how he framed it, but when somebody's that low, there's that law of polarity where if somebody's that low, the heights that they can go to are just incredible.
Yeah. And what's so great to see, you're exactly right, John, but what's so great to see too is that when those guys are so low and God grabs them and pulls them up, they're the biggest voice for the Lord. They're saying, man, it's only God could do this. My life was a complete mess, and now I've got this message. Now I'm here. Now I've got something I can tell people about, and it's only God. So these guys aren't saying, well, look what I've done. They're saying,
right.
no, look what God has done. And it's great that they push it straight back to the Lord, that none of them are taking credit for. Because what can we take credit for? We like I said earlier, my life got worse and worse and worse as I tried to fix myself. How could I take credit in any of that?
Yeah.
It had to have been the Lord. It's so beautiful, but it's so awesome to see how God, differently works with different people in the different situations, and really shows us don't give up on anybody.
Yeah.
Because He's working, and if He can save a wreck like me, He can certainly save the next guy down the road or the next guy in the gutter. And again, we're seeing it over. We get to see it almost every single Sunday, which is a beautiful thing. It's a messy church. We have no idea who's going to show up or what's going to show up. There's people, we've almost had to call the cops a couple times. The people coming in. There's some crazy people dancing around high and homeless, but God's moving, man. God's grabbing people out of it.
Right.
So it's fun to see. Yeah.
So how did you come across the building and secure a building space?
Another God story. We get down to OB. We know we wanted to start a church. We have no building. There's no way we could afford a building by the beach. So we were trying to think, okay, what can we do as far as sharing a building with people? Started talking to a couple of churches in the area. Just thinking, okay, maybe we could partner with them somehow. And so I called a pastor of a Baptist church. Had set up a meeting with me coming into the meeting saying, I'm going to ask this guy if we could use it on Sunday night. Can we use your building? It's just empty right now. So I go, we meet, just kind of nonchalantly talk, and he comes to me before I can even ask him. He says, so you guys are trying to plant OB, you probably don't have a space. How about you guys rent our building on Sunday nights? I'm like, man, I'm supposed to be asking you that question, right? But he popped it out. I was like, yeah, I'd love to. Gives us a great deal. Sees that we're going to reach people completely different from where they're reaching. So he didn't see like a conflict.
Sure.
Some churches, churches don't compete against each other, but some churches feel like they are competing against each other. But he was totally the opposite. He's like, I know your heartbeat from where you're coming from. You guys are going to reach a totally different group than we are. We're not going to reach them. Hopefully you can, and just really blessed us in it. And from the beginning, it's been awesome. We come in and on Sunday nights, we kind of use their back room, not their main sanctuary, which is even better for us. It's just a wide open kind of room, concrete floors, concrete walls, nothing on the stage really, just really plain. Because a lot of the people we're reaching never been to church and scared to come into church.
Right.
If I come in, the wall's going to fall down. If I come in, it's going to catch fire.
Right.
And we always tell them, man, if it didn't catch fire when I came in, I think you're going to be all right, brother. You can walk in. But we don't have, it's not churchy feeling, nothing wrong with churchy feeling, but for the people we're trying to reach, they can feel comfortable coming in, not because a lot of them have been so hurt, so pushed away, not so much by the church, but just they think they are, that I can't go to the Lord. I've done too much to come back to Him.
Right.
So we kind of just try and make it as open and appealing as possible for them to come in. So God's just blessed us with the building. It's a perfect building for us. It's really worked well for us.
And you have an incredible story, but then you also don't look like the average pastor.
Right.
You're all. I don't know if you could show the camera there, but
tattoos there.
You're tatted up, man.
Yeah. It was always a dream of mine. I had one tattoo coming out of prison, and then as we came down here, just kept getting more and more and more. And now I tattoo guys, which is a great ministry in itself, which is nuts. I get
2 hours with somebody,
and just get to tell them my story. We're ministering to the Hell's Angels right now.
Wow.
The guy that's teaching me tattooing is a Hell's Angel.
Yeah,
full on. He tells me about them. I tell him about the Lord. We got this kind of crazy dialogue going on, and I keep telling him we're going to win. I know the side that wins this, partner. But it's crazy what the Lord has done and the doors that He's opened through that. But yeah, and again, I think if I was an OB with a suit like your normal pastor, it wouldn't fly at all.
No.
So I think that the Lord uses even that our look, and just we dress down. I usually wear a t-shirt and jeans on stage. Don't get too dressy, because again, we got people come off the streets, and if they see, I've got to look like this, I'll never be that.
If you're too put together.
Yeah. So we meet them in the mess. I mean, we don't water down the gospel by any means. But we kind of water down what we look like. I don't want you to think you have to be something to come to church. I just want you to come to church.
Yeah.
We don't get clean. We tell people a lot. We don't get cleaned up to come to Jesus. we come to Jesus, then he puts us back together, that he takes the broken and fragmented pieces of our lives and he starts to put us back together. And what's kept people far from the Lord far too often, myself included, is that I thought I had to get it together. Once I get it together, then I'll be okay to come to the church. But that's the exact opposite message of the gospel. The gospel is saying you can't get yourself together. You just need to come to me. I'll put you together. And so we really try and just labor that to people, saying, no, you don't have to look like this or get this or stop this or whatever. Come with everything you got, the mess that you are. We say a lot too, I don't care what you did last night, last week, or 10 minutes before you walked in here. You're here now and God wants to work with you. And so put all that behind you and just listen to him. Hear him saying, come to me, and just respond to that call.
What's the reaction, the most common reaction that people that are in the midst of an addiction and stuff like that, and maybe they're even kind of a little tweaking, in service or whatever. Yeah. Like, do you almost kind of see a change happen there?
You get to see we get to see God soften a lot of people's hearts. We've sent a couple people to a faith-based rehab, a couple different faith-based rehabs. So, but a lot of them are still they're kind of on edge. They hear the message. There's a lot of crying in the service. We try and meet with them, but a lot of them, for whatever reason, God is still working. God is still there's still a little bit more work to do. But yeah, you get to see God breaking through a lot of barriers, through a lot of the hardness. I wish he'd do it a little quicker sometimes, but I know he's got the master plan. I'm sure my mom was saying the same thing about me. Why won't this knucklehead listen?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so we pray almost continually every Sunday. God, bring the right people here and break them down, meet them where they need to be met. Comfort them where they need to be comforted. Because a lot of these guys are just so hurting, they don't even know where to turn. Yeah. There's so much, by the time they get to us, there's so much going on in their lives. They're homeless, addicted. We partner with a group called VVSD, the Veterans Village of San Diego. It's a rehab for veterans, and just down the street on Rosecrans, not actually in Ocean Beach, but just down the road. And so these guys are coming in, but not only have drugs, alcohol, they've got post-traumatic, all that going on. A lot of them have some dual diagnosis, so depression, all this other stuff from being in combat, on top of drugs, alcohol, and all the other problems they've had growing up. And they started coming about 2 years ago, just a small group, and now we've got a pretty solid, anywhere from 5 to 10 of them come, and these guys are getting lit on fire by the Lord, just blowing up. That's really one of the most exciting things for me to see is that group right now, how hungry they are. And so when we're singing, even in worship, these guys are singing louder than anybody else. They're praising the Lord bigger than anybody else. Half the time you can't hear the band because these guys are gone. But it's so exciting to see that they can see that something is different, something is changing inside of them. Because VBSD, it's a great program, but the spiritual aspect is completely out of it. They don't want to bring that in. It's government funded, so we can't really go too far. But they found the church, and they're just bringing guys in, and boatloads are coming in, and God's grabbing these guys and girls. So that's fun to see. The transformation that's happening in those guys is fun. Man, yeah. God's doing good stuff.
Who'd have thought being in a prison cell, and here you are a couple years later, man, doing this.
I couldn't imagine. It still amazes me almost daily to wake up and say, this is my life, that this is what God has given me to do, the ministry he's given us. And it's not all, pie in the sky, roses. It's hard, it's tough ministry. We're constantly raising funds because the people we reach don't have anything really. Right. So we've got a lot of different churches around us, a couple here in Temecula that support us.
That's awesome.
Some in San Diego, some in Arizona. It's just crazy how the Lord has brought these people in to support it. I still work construction and tattoos, so I'm working really 3 jobs right now. But being able to do ministry, even with construction, I work pretty much in OB with a guy, and he brings these knuckleheads to do labor work for him. So I'm ministering to these guys right when we're doing construction work. So it's
God's just using you everywhere, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. But to think I was in OB in the life I was living then to the life I'm living now, even some of the older guys that I run across, they're like, Porter, something's different. And I'm like, yeah, something's completely different. It's Jesus, and they're not there yet. But every chance I can get to show them it, and they're like, man, you really changed. I'm like, no, it wasn't me. It's the Lord, man.
Planting those seeds, huh?
Yeah, we're trying, and God's trying. But it's crazy to think that this is the life. There's no way I would ever dream that in that jail cell, December 21st, 2007, that my life would ever be this. I couldn't even think about how am I going to get a job. Yeah. 2-time felon, but to where he's taking me now, it's bigger and better than I could ever dream or imagine.
There's a lot worse places to live than Southern California by the beach.
Yeah. We said when we moved out here, if somebody's got to suffer for the Lord in Southern California, we'll take the shot. We'll take the bullet for you guys.
Yeah. So I don't know the full story, but I've heard a story about your van.
Yes.
So I want to know this story.
Yeah. So every third Sunday, we do a meal for the homeless. So actually, it's for anybody, primarily for the homeless. We just open up the church for anybody to come in, grab a meal. Anybody can eat. We usually serve 100 to 150 people right before service. We did that at 5, service at 6. So we've been doing that a little over a year now. Different churches come in and kind of sponsor it. But there was a guy that was coming. We'd seen him twice. Didn't really talk to anybody. Always in the background. One Friday night, we had just gone to bed, put the boys to sleep. We got into bed. A neighbor comes banging on our door. You got to get out here. And 11 o'clock at OB, somebody banging on your door. I'm thinking, what's going on, right? I got a bat, and I'm like, okay, what's happening? He's like, no, it's Paul, your neighbor. You guys got to get out here. Your van's on fire. And it's not even registering what he's saying. I'm like, van's on fire, whatever. And we parked in the alley. And so I come running out, put some clothes on real quick, run out, put some shorts on, run out, and the van is just smoking. The fire department's there, the huge truck, they're out there. They're about to bust the window open. They're like, "You got keys? Because we got to get in because it's smolder. The fire's on the outside is out, but it's smoldering on the inside." And so I ran inside, got the keys, came back out, and it's a total loss. Somebody had dragged a trash can, like the big city trash cans, dragged it, placed it next to our van, poured gas in there, lit it on fire, and set it right next to our car.
Why?
We have no idea. And then he went out that night and lit 11 more fires that night, just all over OB. Just went crazy. We didn't know it at the time, but thank goodness the people across from us in the alley had 2 video cameras, and so the police show up and they're like, "Anybody have video?" The guy's like, "We got video," and they showed it to him, so they got to be able to get a picture of the guy that did it. And we're like, we think we know this dude. He's got red dreadlocks. I mean, it's a black guy with red dreadlocks. It's kind of easy to spot, like as red as your tie, dreadlocks, kind of colored. They find him the next morning, lighting another fire on somebody else's car. So they grab him and they're like, "Yep, it's definitely him." But the van's a loss. So we're like, and our kids are 5 and 6 at that time, and our middle one really just got a pure heart. He's like, "Why would somebody light our van on fire, Dad? I don't understand." He's in tears, and he's like, my car seat was in there, and we're trying to explain this to this guy, and I'm thinking, I mean, I'm 10 years out of prison, so there's a lot of the old me still there. So as soon as I see this, I'm thinking, okay, who can I call? I know some fellas in OB that can take care of business still, right? And my wife, thank God, she's there. She's like, no, we need to be praying for this guy, and I'm like, thank you, Jesus, because I'm going the
other direction.
Yeah, I'm thinking old Mark Porter. And she said, "We need to pray for this guy." And I'm like, "You're right. He needs Jesus just like we do." And so next day we called the insurance company, get everything set up. They give us a rental car. A couple from here in Temecula at Brian Wilson's church, who we'd kind of got to know pretty well. I called them that morning. They had put on Facebook they were getting rid of a Nissan Armada. Not getting rid of it, trying to sell it. And I said, "Is that still for sale?" And Brian's like, "Yeah, let's talk about it whenever you get some stuff back from the insurance. When you hear back from them, we'll see what we can do." And I was like, "I don't think we're gonna get much." He's like, "We'll see what we can do. Let's just wait it out." I was like, "All right." So we were going out to dinner that night just to kind of breathe a little bit. He calls me up. We're just getting in the rental car that we have, and he says, "Mark, you got a second?" I was like, "Yeah. What's happening?" He's like, "Me and my wife and my daughter were praying, and we think we're supposed to give this car to you." They were selling it for $11,000.
Wow.
"We're supposed to give this to you." And I'm not too emotional, but I couldn't talk. And I'm a pastor too, and so I can talk a lot, right? That's what I get paid to do. And I'm like, if I talk, I'm gonna lose it. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me." And Lindsay's like, "Are you all right?" With my wife, she's like, "Are you okay?" Because we're just getting in the car. And I'm like, "You won't believe what's going on. You won't believe this." And Brian's like, "Yeah, we want to bless you guys. God told us to do this." And so going from a van, I mean, it was a nice van, but it wasn't what we got now, to a decked out Nissan Armada. I mean, God just gave us an upgrade. In one day, all this turned around. So we go from what are we going to do? How are we going to get through this? To, "Oh my gosh, Lord, you're so good. He took care of us better than we could ever imagine."
I love stories like that because, sometimes you might have something that's good. God's like, "Oh, well, that's cool, but hold on, I got something."
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I got something great for you.
Let me look at the upgrade I got for you.
Yeah.
And we've seen the Lord do. I mean, that was probably the most dramatic. Mm-hmm. But we've seen the Lord just show up in ways that we just continually blow us away. How He's provided, how He's stepped in, how He's, when we're like going, "Lord, I don't know how this is going to work," He's like, just relax. Do you remember who your
Trust
father
me.
is?
Yeah.
Do you know who you're talking to? I got this. And so it's made us lean on him, trust in him, but there's no better place to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we start to veer and we think we've got this, I think he allows some things to happen in our lives. We have to lean on him.
Yeah.
We have to say, God, I don't know how this is going to work. And he's like, good, because I do. So trust in me again. He's always kept us deep. What we say is he's kept us deeply tied to him. Because I don't want to be over here wandering and straying. I want to be right next to the Lord. I'm the sheep that likes to wander and do my own thing, and he's constantly pulling me back, saying, "Get back here! What are you doing over there?" Just a dumb sheep wandering around.
It's funny, in those tests you can get that testimony.
Right.
And,
amen. Yeah. Amen.
But we're still human though, because anytime something bad happens in my life, I know I'm like, oh my gosh, you just start to crumble.
Apart,
He's like, well, hold on, have I not proven myself 1,010 times to you?
Amen.
Like,
amen. Yeah. I love about God in the Old Testament. He does it in the New Testament too, but all through the Old Testament, he keeps saying, build an altar here,
Yeah.
so you'll remember. When something good would happen, he'd say, build an altar so you can remember. And I think we need to do that in our lives when God provides, to build an altar, whatever that looks like. Maybe write it down or whatever, but so we remember. So the next time something crazy happens, we can say, oh no, but remember when God provided here. Remember how he got us through this. Remember how when this happened, we didn't know where we were going to turn, but God got us through it. And so those are those little mementos that we can look back on and say, no, God, if God can get us through that, he'll get us through this. He's been faithful then. He hasn't changed. He'll still be faithful today.
And that's, I've been walking with God since I was 20 years old, so 17 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big theme for me has been his faithfulness.
Amen.
Even when I'm unfaithful,
Right.
and I screw up and I keep going back to my old ways of life and stuff like that. He is always faithful.
Yeah.
It's so patient.
Yeah, amen. Yeah. And you can see it so much. You can see it throughout, like so many times where I think I've blown it. He's like, no, I got you still. I got you. Like the prodigal son, he'll let us run, but as soon as we turn back, he's there for us. Open arms, saying, let's celebrate. You're home. You came back to me, and so even as we run and stray, he's still pursuing us. He's still coming after us. He hasn't left us or forsaken us. Praise the Lord. Even when we're knuckleheads, which I can surely be
most of the time.
right. Yeah.
Doesn't die easily.
No, that's still part of my testimony. That he's still redeeming some things inside of me. Praise the Lord. He doesn't stop. It wasn't like salvation. I'm going to do this big change and then you're done. It's continually working in us, continually peeling back layers, continually continuing the work that he began. He's faithful to continue. He's faithful to walk us through. Each phase of life. And every phase I think I'm almost there. And then he shows me something else. He's like, okay, now we're going to work on this. And I'm like, no, Lord, I thought we were done.
I thought I had this all dialed in. Yeah.
And I think sometimes the closer we get to him, the more we see how desperate we are.
Yeah.
Like you think the closer you get, okay, well, I'm a little bit, I think I can shine now. And he's like, no, partner, you're never shining on your own. You only shine because of me and you.
And what I found too is that right when you think you have God in a box, like, okay, I got this whole thing figured out. I know the way that he's going to respond to this. He's like, no, you don't.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah. And we get to see that how he works in different people's lives around us. We think, well, this happened with this guy. This is how this guy.
This is the formula.
Yeah. This is how we do it. And then he comes in. He's like, no, I'm going to do it a completely different way with this guy. And you're like, well, this is the God we work with. I'll just follow you. I'll just jump on your team, Lord, because I don't have it figured out at all.
It's exciting, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
It's incredible.
That's the one thing with ministry is it's always changing. It's never the same. It's every person you meet has a different story, and you get to see how God's going to work in their life or has worked in their life, and it's beautiful. It's a never-ending thing. One thing with construction is that when you get done with construction every day, you get to see what you've done. Sometimes in ministry, you don't necessarily get to see it. Sometimes till further down the line, but you get those little God gives you those little shots. Look what I did here. Look what I did here. And so sometimes even in ministry, you walk away going, did I do anything today? Did anything even happen? But because of God's work in it, that something supernatural is happening. And sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes we don't see it. We trust that he's still doing it. Like you said, he's faithful. We do the work that he told us to do. He's faithful to do the rest.
I find it very interesting that Jesus' earthly vocation was that of a carpenter.
Right.
Because I spent a couple summers working with a carpenter, and carpenters can do some incredibly amazing things as far as just, taking something that's, not all that glamorous and then doing something pretty incredible with their skills and the woodworking and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And so I can't wait for us to get to heaven because, the Bible says that, in his Father's house, there's many rooms for us, right?
Yeah, right.
And we're like, okay, that's nice. It's like a hotel kind of thing. Like we just walk in and all the rooms are the same. No. Like,
Right.
do you know how amazing
The
that is going to
detail,
be?
right,
The amount,
yeah,
the intricate detail.
Right, yeah.
That's going to be fascinating.
It's going to blow us away. Yeah, I can't wait till that day till we see him in the sky. And I think we all picture what it might look like, but it's just going to blow it all away. Even the beauty we've seen here, the ocean, the waterfalls, the mountains, the beautiful things he's done on this earth, it's going to pale in comparison to the glory that awaits for us, as Paul says. It's going to be shown to us, revealed in heaven.
I know nobody this side of heaven has the answer, but I'm always curious, so I like to ask this question. What do you think heaven's going to be like?
For me personally, I think it's going to be like the North Shore of Oahu, just being a surfer. But I think it's just there's going to be a peace and a contentment far beyond the beauty of it all. I think there's going to be what I think about most is the feelings we'll have there, the overwhelming love, the overwhelming joy. And again, that peace and contentment, which we get glimpses of here when God really does something special inside of us or around us. We get little kind of shots of that, but I think it's just going to be a never-ending, just continual, just that breath of fresh air, just kind of like just a lightness, that like when you're in the presence of the Lord at a worship service or at church or even at your house or when you're at the beach or at a mountaintop, when you just get that emotion of you can't even really describe it. You want to cry, but you want to laugh, and you don't. It's just kind of all over the place. I think it's going to be continual. Feeling. Yeah, it's just going to be continual, for all of eternity, just in the presence of God. And how beautiful is that? That we won't have to worry about this or that or that. It's all going to be taken care of. We'll just get to spend time with each other and spend time with Him.
So, besides Jesus, who do you want to see up there?
My dad, 100%. I mean, the last time he saw me, I wasn't full on. I mean, I was smoking weed every day for sure, not drinking every day yet. I was close, but I didn't even know this till after he passed away. But my mom, when they first got married, had told me that my dad wanted to be a reverend when they got together, and we never went to church. So I'm like,
interesting.
But my dad grew up in a strict Methodist home. His grandmother, or my grandmother, his mom drilled it into him. They went to church every Sunday. He dressed up to the whole nines, decked out. But to be able, and I think he sees now, but just to be able to talk to him and say, man, can you believe what's happening here? Him and Tom Landry. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, so I can't wait to talk to Tom Landry.
Nice.
Out of nowhere, right? But yeah, I'm like I said earlier, my dad was my hero growing up. And I always felt like I let him down, even though he had passed away and when I got really, really bad. But I was always in the back of my mind, I let him down. But now I think I met his sister. I didn't meet her. I saw his sister 2 years ago, and went back to Columbus, Ohio, and she's still alive. I think she's like 87. And told her my story, and she didn't really know my story. After my dad had passed away, we kind of drifted apart. And she heard I went to prison and all this, and now I'm a pastor. And she's like, she's real soft tone. She's like, Mark, your dad would be so proud of you. And man, that was it. I was like, if that's all I ever hear, this side of heaven, I want to hear Jesus is proud of me. I want to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. But hearing that my dad was proud of me or would be proud of me, that was it. Yeah. And I can die a happy man. I don't want to die happy right now, but I could.
You got a lot more work to do.
Yeah, amen. Yeah. So even hearing that, I try and tell my boys that our boys, I'm proud of you. Yeah. Not a lot. I didn't hear it a lot growing up, but I want it to be something that our boys hear. And so it's hard for me even to say it, not hearing it. But I try and make myself say. Our oldest boy plays baseball, and I try and tell him after every game, I'm proud of you, whether he hit a home run or struck out 3 times. But yeah, I'm proud of you. You're out there. You're giving it your best.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts?
I'd say, John, the final thought was something we say in church all the time, so I'll say it here, is we say, but God all the time. But God comes out of Ephesians 2, 4, and 5. And that scripture says, but God, being rich in mercy, because of his great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, God made us alive together in Christ. And that's what we get to see every day. That's what happened in my life. I was dead in my sins, dead in my trespasses, but God saw fit to redeem me, to rescue me, and to revive me, and set me on this platform of life that I could have never dreamed for myself. And so we say our church is a but God church, full of but God people with but God stories, and waiting to see what God's going to do next.
It's going to be an amazing journey, and I'm so glad I finally got to meet you in person. We've seen each other on Facebook and stuff like that, but even through Facebook, I could tell something was going on over there. So to have you in the studio to actually share your story and your testimony, and who knows where these videos are going to go.
Amen.
So I'm just so proud to know you and call you a friend now, and know you face to face, man.
Yeah, thank you, John.
And hopefully I'll see you before heaven, but
Amen.
We'll cross paths again.
Amen.
Well, folks, that's this episode of the Red Tie Community Show. And as you can see, God can do all things. So make sure you say your prayers. Keep your heart open, because it's amazing the journey that he could take you on. And that's it, folks. This is John Butler, the ball guy in the red tie, saying see you in escrow. Bye.